Hi, I'm Noah Wasiliu.
Hi, I'm Olivia Jensen. This is our 410
Assignment, yep.
recording. Yep. All right. So let's get started. Oh my God. So what is fair assessment to you and also valuable assessment to you?
Okay, so I think for fair assessment, it's got to be not necessarily the same assessment, but it's got to be written in a way for your class as like a dynamic to work. So whether that's like student driven or whether or not you have certain students that need more adaptions, kind of just change it for that sake. But I think making sure it's for the students and changing it every time you get a new bunch.
Yeah.
And like I say, like making it fair but equitable. And I think just also using a wide range of assessments.
Assessment, yeah.
So not just sticking with tests, because not everyone is a test person.
Yeah.
But also doing it like in a way where everyone can succeed.
Yeah. Do you think summative assessment is like a valuable form of assessment?
I do. I think both summative and formative are good ways. I think it doesn't like necessarily need to be all summative or all formative. I just think it needs to have a nice balance.
Yeah.
And I think depending on how the semester goes, you can kind of switch it around if you need for the benefit of your class. But
yeah.
My question for you is, so for assessment, if 100% is exceeding expectation, do you think that's a good goal to hit? Or do you think like we should be wanting to always improve ourselves?
I think when making a rubric, I don't think it's fair if going above and beyond is 100%. I feel like if students are meeting the outcome and meeting expectations, then I feel like that should give them 100%. But I don't know how I feel about bonus marks if students go above and beyond. Yeah, I don't know. I knew a girl who got like 101 in English in like grade 7. And I don't know I don't know how I felt about that, just because not every student was given the opportunity to go above and beyond, I guess.
And why would you say that? Like, is it harder for other students, maybe?
I would say so. I guess, like, English isn't a good example for me, but for math, like, I could go above and beyond, but other students feel like they can't. I guess it's depends on what you're stronger in and what what your students actually do for like whatever you're assessing. Yeah, I just don't like bonus marks. I don't know how I feel about it yet.
If you would have bonus marks, would you make it like content worthy, or like, because I know lots of my teachers growing up just had like, what's my pet's name, or something stupid like that?
No, I wouldn't have it like that. I know for my pre-internship, my co-op made the students hand in their like reviews before the test, like their chapter reviews. And if the students did a certain question, she would like choose a random one, and if they got it, then they would get 2% bonus on the test.
Okay. So
I guess that is a motivation for students to do the review, to get like that extra 2%. I can kind of maybe see me doing it that way, but I don't know if I would make the homework check worth marks. Yeah. I think having it maybe go towards a test is maybe
Would you do like, I know in my high school we had like, when our test was done, we had the chance to revise it ourselves, so like fix our mistakes. So she wouldn't go over it as a class; she'd make us do it ourselves to kind of increase that like understanding of what we did wrong, and then she'd give us like a certain percentage back, so like a 10% back of what we got wrong. So if we got 3 marks wrong, it'd be 10% of that 3 marks. Would you do something like that maybe?
Yeah, maybe. Especially in high school if there's like a final exam, because they're probably going to get tested on that knowledge again. So
it's a better way for them
to understand.
And get
Yeah.
better,
How would you use rubrics or success criteria to assess math?
Success to
Assess
math.
Yeah.
I think it's hard for math because we really kind of mark off of the content, but I think it's important to have a rubric for certain things. Like in our e-math class, we made a rubric on a question that we all did, and we marked it. But it was difficult to make it, but we made it so that just because you may have gotten the wrong answer, but if you carried your mistake or even had multiple, so the question was kind of different methods of answering a question, and so we would give marks for if you attempted more than one solution, but we also gave marks if you somehow got to a conclusion and then kind of marked, like deducted marks based off of what like organization was missing and what marks, like if they messed up on a calculation but carried it through, we'd only deduct them like once. But I think depending on how the question is worded, you kind of just base the rubric off of that. I think it's harder, but I think it would increase the chance for students to try more ways.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I found because we made a rubric for an assignment for pre-internship, and I found that a rubric for an open task is
much
easier to mark, because if students come up with so many different ways, then you just can't make the rubric like specific to one way of
it's got to be
students.
More open and more like a creation aspect to it, and I think that's kind of where more the deeper learning is, and it gives them a chance to get more marks, and it might even motivate them more to do it, versus just if it's right, it's right, if it's wrong, it's wrong. So I think that is a better way. With the success criteria, I think the creation of it is the hard part. But once you have that framework, you can easily adapt it for your class, and then it's just a quick way of, oh yes, they did this, check, yes they did this, oh they need a little bit of work on this, and you can kind of write what, like, based off of your success criteria. So it's an easier way. I don't think the downfall of a success criteria is when you put, like, let's say a 70% for one success, it's hard to justify it because there's no like defined like
answer of what the
70 is exactly. So it's just a little bit misleading in a way. But I think in high school they wouldn't really test you on it. Like they wouldn't argue. Like I don't think high school students are much to argue with their marks because they know, like, they understand why. It's more like our age of like, well, I'm paying for this class. And I know I did this, so I'm going to argue like my side. But but that's what I think.
I do feel like there would be students that would cause a riot.
I think it's like minimal though, and you can kind of work with them. And they'll know, like, if they're like wrong, they know they're wrong, but if they're right, they know they're right. So it's kind of like you won't have to really like argue with them because they'll know regardless. But so my question for you is, what was your philosophy on assessment before And have you learned? And what have you learned? What would you have taken back from this course and this pre-internship?
So I didn't really think about assessment before this class. I didn't really have any sort of idea. I feel like all of the education classes we've taken have really focused on our teaching philosophy and not anything else, really. Like, it's just, what's your teaching philosophy? What is it?
How to make lesson plans.
How to make lesson plans, but like there is assessment when making lesson plans, but there's nothing.
It's kind of just fluff.
Yeah. So not really. There's not a whole lot of focus on assessment before this class. But I guess now that I've taken this class, I want my assessment to be fair, and I want it to be meaningful. It's a little hard for math because a lot of people don't find math meaningful, but I guess that's just how you teach it. I want it to motivate students to learn because as a teacher, that's our goal, is to make lifelong learners. So just making it, just motivating them. It is hard for formative because all I heard during pre-internship is this worth marks? Taking this in for marks? Is it worth marks? So I think teaching students the value of formative assessment as well is important. And I guess this kind of goes with math, but I want it to be like incremental. I read it on one of the readings, like the tests or quizzes to like go off of one another so they can build their skills. Yeah, that's kind of what I learned through this class. You?
Mine was kind of the same. Like, it didn't really. I knew like there were assessment tools like tests and quizzes, and I knew of them. I've just never really touched them. Like during our lesson plans that we make, you kind of just, oh, we'll do a journal, we'll do this, we'll do that, but you never really do it because we never actually assess what we've been teaching because we've never really been in the class.
Yeah.
But I think like mostly I've learned in this class that like assessment needs to be more fair and equitable, as you said, but also kind of having your own opinion on it, like what you want to do as a person.
Yeah, not going like off of what.
Yeah, like it's
other
kind
teachers
of
are
it's
doing.
based off of what you believe.
Yeah.
Obviously, you're gonna have to follow like protocol for your school, but
And like meet the outcomes.
yeah, but I think it's just a lot of like student driven. I think it should be based off of your students and how they perform, and if they're not doing well, what can you do to make it better? And I think what you said, the value of learning, it needs to be really addressed more because they're all mark driven, and I think that's the issue and why they're not learning it, and why math is kind of very, you either get it or you don't.
Yeah.
Because they just don't see the value in their mistakes and how you need to practice. You need to do your homework, and it's just something that you need to do to get better. And they don't really understand that.
Yeah, and I did find that the students that did well in math and wanted good grades, they wanted the marks so they could keep their average up, and then the students who didn't hand in homework, didn't do anything, still, if they finished something that you weren't going to take for marks, they would just get mad and be like, why did I do this? So yeah, it's just really mark driven, and I didn't even realize that until pre-internship, how mark driven students are.
And even like in our school, we had a big issue of kids missing tests on test day just because they didn't want to write it, and that's a big issue. And it just seems like with all these, with the epidemic of like all the mental illnesses, it's just like, I know like we learn a lot about how standardized testing is just kind of outdated, but
Yeah.
it is outdated, and it needs to be changed because of how many kids can't do it.
Yeah.
Like all these kids are so mentally like ill in
Yeah.
a way that they can't write them and they're afraid to write them and they just skip the test because of it. And I think we need to find some sort of way to get rid of that so that they do come to class and they do want to be assessed.
Mm-hmm.
Because like obviously like you gotta write tests, but like
Yeah.
it's just
Well, you just want
making
them
them
to come and
comfortable
learn.
to
And,
do it.
yeah.
But yeah, and I think I still need to grow on what I've been learning, and I think
Mhm.
I still need to understand how to use assessments properly. But I think
Yeah.
now I think the most learning we did was in pre-internship with assessments because we actually got to
Experience.
experience it. We got to actually write them, like
Mhm.
writing a test for the
And
first time,
marking
writing
the
it, yeah, and
test.
marking it. It's just
Yeah.
like I learned a lot in the class, but I think the most learning was in the pre-internship on, because like throughout the last 2 years, like I've written so many assessments in my lesson plans,
Mhm.
but there's not any in depth with it because you know you're not going to use it
Yeah.
at all. But with the actual teaching of kids,
Yeah.
you have it. You're marking their stuff. You're
Yeah.
taking it in for marks, and like I put in grades
Yeah.
into their grade books and stuff, and it's definitely
Takes a lot
different.
more time than I thought.
oh yeah.
Cause I think it'll be faster as we get more experience with marking.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, just like finding out where to give marks and where to take marks away if they did
Yeah.
a certain part
Yeah, exactly.
wrong.
Like having that mark scheme, if they carry their answer and stuff, and how organized is it, and do they show their
Yeah.
work?
And to be fair with every student. That is what I found hard is like, oh, did I give a mark for that?
Mhm.
Or did I like take a mark off for that? Just to like keep your assessment and your marking consistent is also something that I have to work on because I'm pretty sure yeah.
And even like like we had one test and 2 quizzes,
Mm-hmm.
and our co-op made us do an hour-long quiz, which is something I've
Oh, really?
never really like.
It's so long.
It's just it's long. It's like it was basically a test, but not as weighted as much.
Yeah.
But like I was so used to like 4 questions as a quiz that would
Yeah.
take 20 minutes, but they get the whole hour, and it's just crazy. It's just different assessment
Yeah.
theories or philosophies, especially from our co-op. But it was good to see. I don't think I necessarily agree with it, but
Yeah. Yeah, same with homework checks being worth marks. I don't know.
yeah, it's like an easy
I
way
had a
out.
tough-
I think I had a
yeah.
tough time doing it, but
Yeah.
it is easy.
And it does make you accountable if a parent
Yeah.
calls you and is
And you know
like,
why the
did they-
students aren't doing well.
Yeah,
'cause
it's like,
they're
why
not
aren't they
their
doing
homework.
well?
I might do homework checks and just check it if they did it, but I don't think I would give marks
Yeah.
on it necessarily. But who knows?
Yeah, I know. It's like
So
we were only in a school for 3 weeks and it like wasn't our classroom, and so who knows what the future holds
Okay.
for assessment for us.
So, big question here. When do you think assessment, this is kind of a 3-parter question, but
Ooh,
when
hit
do you
me
think
with it.
assessment is meaningful, and how would you promote their learning so that we can motivate the students
Ooh.
into wanting to have a meaningful assessment?
To make it meaningful, I think it's hard because I don't think students really find meaning in assessment. They just find marks. To make it meaningful.
I know it's a deep question.
Yeah, like what the heck. I think doing different types of assessment would make assessment more meaningful. So not just doing test quizzes, like
Mhm.
doing more project-based stuff or group work or inquiry-based learning would help make it more meaningful, like for students to get hands-on and
Would you ever do like
Actually.
participation marks? Maybe?
um
Because I know a big thing is people just don't want to do anything. And I think if they knew that you were giving marks for participation, they might actually.
maybe never
do
really
something.
thought of that.
It's more of like a phys ed thing.
Yeah.
But like, I think it could work to help
For-
motivate
yeah.
some students.
For any class, I guess, yeah.
Even if it's like such a small percentage, or even self-assessment.
Yeah,
If you had a group work, like grading them and kind of maybe having them realize the meaning behind it and doing it responsibly. Because I
Yeah.
think our kids are very spoon-fed.
yeah,
And
for sure.
I think they're very immature and they don't really take action themselves. It's mostly their parents or us.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's the biggest jump from, I guess, like, there's no middle school in Saskatchewan, but where I'm from,
Yeah, same
there's
me.
middle school.
Yep.
And
There's a
the
junior
biggest
high.
jump was just, like, high school teachers, they don't, like, in my opinion, they didn't spoon feed me as much in high school than middle school, and I really had to take action of my own learning.
Yeah,
And especially me being an athlete, I was gone a lot, so I needed to get the notes, and it just made me a more responsible person and
Yeah.
in charge of my own learning. Because I think that's a big thing we need
Yeah.
to really teach for is that they need to be in charge of their own.
yeah. They
learning.
want students. We need students to want to get better. Like we can do what we can as a teacher. We can give them all the resources, all the tools. But if they're not coming to class, they're not studying, they're not doing their homework, they're not asking for help, they're not coming after school, when you're providing all those resources, then there's not a whole lot more you can do for them. So we do need students to want to learn and want to get better, but I guess that's why as a teacher we should try and make assessment more motivating and more valuable to them, just so they want to come to class and they want to learn. But I don't know. We also have to meet outcomes and.
Mm-hmm. Especially with such a strict timeline. I know certain classes are easier than others. Like our co-op said that Math 9 was very easy because it's a lot of new content, but you have the whole year to do it. That
Yeah.
she said she usually finishes in May, so it's not a big deal. But she said that some classes like pre-cal 20, I think it was, like it's just there's so much content and new things learned every day. There's no time for a day off or a work period because
Yeah.
you just have to grind every day. And
Yeah.
I think like it may take a toll on some students, but I think just they need to understand that you need to practice.
Yeah.
It's just gotta.
Yeah. Just.
I think that's the biggest thing. It's like they just aren't understand. Like I read the one article that she had. It was about, or maybe it wasn't what she had, but I read into it. It was it was about kids who don't necessarily have math. They would underachieve because they think that the top tier of math students, they just have the math gene or whatever it is, and that they don't practice because it's just easy to them. But what they don't understand is the people who are good at math, they practice it all the time. They do it like they do their homework, they do it again.
Oh yeah,
and
I would do my homework for fun.
Yeah,
like I would do my homework just because I didn't want to do any other homework.
And they're good at it because they practice. But then these kids who aren't as good, who really need the practice, think, oh, they're not practicing, so there's no way I could get to them. And so that's what I think what creates that big divide, and is something we need to change.
Yeah.
And the value of math.
Yeah.
Specifically.
Yeah.
Both being math majors, of course.
Yeah, of course. Both being so good at math, of course. So how would you make assessment different for students then?
I think it's knowing your class. So if it's, I know our co-op had particular students with these green sheets that needed more attention. Like they had more wiggle room. But I think making an assessment so that they can benefit from it So I know one student in our class, or in our pre-internship class, they had that green sheet,
Yeah.
and we were allowed to give her a little more hints on the test just because of that green sheet. So things like that, I think if kids are better, like, orally, as I said, like, in my video, that why not give them a test orally if they can, or, like, if they need extra quiet, like, put them in a resource room where there's no people, like,
Distracting.
Like, I know, like, some people take the whole hour to do it, and some people can do it in 20 minutes. So it's like, it gets pretty loud once, like, the top portion of the class is done. So giving them that space, and then also just changing your assessments, keeping it, like, balanced, but also balanced in a way that it'll promote your class individually.
Yeah.
So it's gonna change every semester. It's your new students. It's just gonna be different, and I think the faster we can connect to our students, the easier it will be to assess them.
Yeah. Well, you talked about in your video about like orally, taking the test orally. So that's also a different way for students to be assessed, because there's just students who aren't good test takers and get test anxiety,
Or
and
even like multiple choice. Like, that's one thing I was never good at. I just second guessed myself, and I think it's hard. And like, it can be a good way of assessing, but it can also be a bad way depending on.
Oh,
who
we
you
did
have.
a multiple choice for a pre-internship, and we did not like it. We should have just taken it out, because like all these students did all their work, but they only get 1 mark for it. But they don't get part marks if they did the work wrong and got the answer wrong.
Exactly.
Or did their work right and got the answer wrong.
We kind of just made it for like definitions. It's
Yeah.
like, if they know it, they know it. If they don't, guess.
Yeah, so that's what.
We also had true or false, which was also kind of a cool thing. Like, it's an easier way to give them marks if they don't understand. So it's like 50-50. If it's false, though, they have to correct the mistake or whatever. So, like, when in doubt, just say it's false, and then you have a 50% of chance of getting it right.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah, I feel like teachers do assessment to make it easier for them.
And not easier for the students.
I mean, we are human, like we can't like burn ourselves out, but yeah, I don't know. It's just finding a balance, I guess.
Yeah, finding that balance is important. Okay, one last question. What type of non-traditional assessments after this class and after this pre-internship would you want to use for internship coming up in the fall?
I would like to do more like project-based assessment. We did one for Workplace 10, and they all most of them handed it in, and most of them did well on it, or all the students that handed it in did well on it. So it's just finding.
Did you create a rubric for it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so they had to like draw a room because it was like drawing similar polygons and.
Oh, okay. So almost like a architectural like connection. So,
Yeah.
And I think that's a good thing about Workplace, because it's so easy to
connect
to the real world.
Yeah, it's so fun.
Yeah.
I really hope I get to teach it.
Yeah, it seems
again.
like such a fun class to teach,
Yeah.
but it's one that most students, if they're in it, they're considered the dumb group.
Dumb. Yeah.
And just don't like math at
Yeah.
all. Or they just have to take it.
Yeah, that's why it's so important to make the assessment motivating and valuable to them. Yeah, for math, for different types of assessment, it's a little hard, but I feel like doing more inquiry-based lessons and
I think like
5 practice.
we did
materials.
not edit, but we rated those essays in class, and I think like obviously as a math major, we're not going to be looking at many essays, but
Hopefully not.
but we may even do journals, and that can that
Oh, yeah,
like
journal
that
entries,
skill
yeah.
we kind of looked at when looking at those essays can be transferred, and even just the fact that like, what if we apply for a job and we don't get a math?
Yeah.
So it's like
We will
it
have
could
to-
be used. I'm not saying it will be, but I think it definitely did. Like looking at those essays, it did help me understand like what's a good essay and what to look out for and how could I even use that in the math class. But
Yeah.
thanks for chatting.
Yeah. Thanks for chit chatting with me.
Peace out.
Bye.